All right, welcome into the Boston Sports Beat. John Zannis alongside Greg Bedard here. We said on Monday when we did this, we weren't going to talk about Tom Brady till next week, but we're going to talk about Tom Brady again because Camp Brady, and again, you wrote about this over at Boston Sports Journal, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. $5.99 a month, 11 cents a day. Camp Brady, both with Tom Brady Sr., doing an interview talking about how Tom felt vindicated, and then his trainer about how things ended, really didn't, drape themselves in glory here heading into this matchup. And again, you wrote it at BSJ. We get it, okay? You like Tom. You didn't like the way things ended here, but what's the benefit of this?
Their own egos, really, John. And I did write about this at BSJ, but for those of you who are not members, this has been taken from behind the paywall, so it is available to everybody, and so is my Mac Jones Jets review. So make sure you go over there and check out those articles. They're free for you guys to read to get a gist of what we do over at BSJ if you're still on the fence about subscribing. John, this is simply about ego. And you're talking about two sides, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, with humongous egos, and they need to feel vindicated. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous, John. We all know, everyone knows what the scoreboard says. And the scoreboard says that Bill looks terrible with what has gone on in Tampa Bay with Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl title, him going 7-9 with Cam Newton, having to jettison Cam Newton in year two, not making the playoffs, going 7-9, having to go with a rookie quarterback. They're off to a so-so start. Without saying anything, Team Brady looks tremendous in all this. It's when they open their mouths and they start telling you how good they look, they start to look really, really small, and all of a sudden Belichick looks a lot better by not saying a word. They just should have shut their mouths and just let the scoreboard do the talking. We all know what the score is. Tom is trouncing Bill. It's not over yet, but right now Tom is trouncing Bill. Bill looks terrible. And the more Team Brady talks and tells you and thumps their chest about how good they are and how great things have been since Bill ran them off in New England, the worse they look.
Yeah, and again, we have Tom Brady Sr., we have Guerrero saying his thing that Bill never evolved with Tom. While it is petty, do you think but it is petty, but do you think it's true in the sense of,
it's all
and again,
true.
Yeah, could Bill have done more? Because as you're right, the scoreboard, you could just point to the scoreboard and be like, see, it's obvious. Everyone sees what Brady is doing. But is there any truth to it? Because at the end of the day, I don't think Patriots fans care about petty. They care that this guy isn't playing quarterback here anymore, and maybe he should be.
John, there is absolutely truth to all of it. And I'm on their side with everything from, did Bill not want Tom, and did he not go far enough as far as the contract to make him feel wanted? Absolutely. Did Bill fail to evolve as far as his treatment of Brady in terms of Alex Guerrero and things like that? Absolutely. They are all right on that. But here's the thing, John. Bill Belichick was true to himself. He never changed. I mean, that's what they're complaining about, Bill Belichick not changing, whether it's Bill sticking to his guns that I'm not going to give a contract extension to a 40-year-old quarterback, or I'm not giving special treatment with a trainer to one player who, this trainer may be disrupting what my strength team is doing. Bill stayed true to himself, and they're complaining that Bill didn't treat Tom special. Now, do I think that at the end, from like mid-30s on, should Bill have treated Tom differently, given him the contract extension, swallowed the cap hit if it didn't work out? Yes. Should he have allowed whatever Alex Guerrero to do whatever he wanted to, and made it easier on Tom as he got to his late 30s? Absolutely. And I think he should have done that, and that was his error. But to complain now and sort of point at Bill and be like, you did this, you didn't do that, it's just Bill being Bill. I thought, Bill could have treated him special and no one would have said a word in the locker room. They all would have been like, well, it's Tom Brady. Of course he deserves this treatment. And so I fault Bill for that. But for these guys to complain about Belichick just being Belichick, again, it doesn't look kindly on them.
No, I mean, and it's with Belichick, it's a, take the good, take the bad. Ultimately, the results are obviously there. So there is a way, and he followed his way. And that's what it comes down to. Talking about, you mentioned it earlier, your Mac Jones article being available to everybody to read over at BSJ. You got a chance to finally look at film, and a lot of people were really impatient coming off that Jets game, thinking this might be the opportunity where the Patriots would open it up and let Mac kind of throw the ball downfield, and you see a little bit more, and it felt almost like a step back with a very conservative game plan. So the question was Mac not doing the right things? Were there plays to be made? Was it a game? Was it a game script that he followed, and that's why? So your main takeaway here is he's doing pretty freaking good for a rookie in a second game.
Yeah, so I went through the all 22 and I graded his decision making. Did he have better options? And I try to be fair and not be too harsh of a judge. I mean, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the play call was. I don't know. Like one time there was a play where Nelson Aguilar blatantly ran the wrong route. And so you try to take in all that into consideration and just look, from the Dolphins game, which was his first NFL start against a team that did a lot of different things, I had Mac Jones's decision making graded 86.8% positive. The Jets game was a little bit less. It was 80.8. I thought both games. I thought there were 5 plays where, in my opinion, he definitely had better options that he didn't go to. Now, here's the thing, and so that total in 2 games, 84.4%. To me, and I've never really graded this before because I haven't had to me, that is very, very impressive for a guy playing 2 NFL games. I mean, for him to do what he did against the Dolphins in his first NFL start, I was more impressed with that film. It was astounding what he did and what he saw. And look, five decisions in each game, I thought he could have made better decisions. To me, that's in the sort of, the room for error for any quarterback. I mean, now Tom Brady in his later years, I would probably thinking back about 1 to 3 mental errors a game for Tom Brady. If you want to call these errors, 5 for Mac Jones in his second, NFL game. That's pretty damn good to me. And so I'm just fine where he is. He will learn from the plays where he left plays on the field. I think he's in a great spot.
All right. Lastly, let's take a quick look at this weekend's game. Which version of Mac? What are we going to see from the Patriots offense, you think, in this game, Week 3 against the Saints? And also, might this be similar to the Jets game in the sense of, why don't you just let the other team's quarterback beat himself, and then whatever happens here? Because we've now seen good Jameis and bad Jameis here. It's really actually hard to say what New Orleans team you're going to see.
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty balanced on offense again. I do think that they'll take some shot plays because the Saints are a little challenged at cornerback. Seems like they've been looking for cornerbacks all year. You still have the safeties are pretty good, so you have to worry about them. Malcolm Jenkins and his running mate there, they're pretty good safeties. I think that the Patriots offensive line needs to win against the Saints defensive line if they take care of Cameron Jordan. And I think that I think the Patriots will go out and try to stop Alvin Kamara, both running and passing, sort of like the Marshall Faulk plan, and let Jameis Winston try to beat them. We'll have to see how that goes.
All right, let's switch gears, talk some baseball. We have Sean McAdam of the Boston Sports Journal alongside. And Sean, here we are, 9 games left. Red Sox kicking off a pivotal 3-game series against the Yankees. They're in the driver's seat right now, 2 games up on the AL wildcard. Really, anything short of a sweep here, and they're in really good position because they're closing their schedule with 3 games against the Orioles, 3 games against the Nationals, which are 2 of the worst teams in baseball. So I guess don't get swept would be really good here, but win 1, pretty good shape, win 2 games, and they're really, really, I wouldn't say cruising, but in really solid shape here to get that top AL wildcard spot.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. If they get 2 out of the 3, they can go 3-3 in those 6 games against the Orioles and Nationals, and that shouldn't be too much of a hill to climb there. You're playing, as you noted, 2 of the worst teams in the game. The Orioles are on a pace to lose about 110 games. The Nationals aren't quite so bad when you look at it from the entire season, but look at their record since the trading deadline, when they moved about half their major league roster, and they're a far worse team since then. So it's a pretty big cushion for the final week. And really, the Red Sox, as you said, have to avoid being swept. If they win 2 of 3, I think the wild card race is effectively clinched.
Now, there are lineup decisions that are going to come to play here. I know a lot is made out of the whole Schwarber, JD, Kike, and Verdugo situation, which is certainly something that's, you're going to hate to remove one of those guys from a lineup in a 1-game playoff, for sure, when it comes down to that. But that's, matchup dependent. One question here again remains is second base. And I know this is something you wanted to talk about. Seems a bit of a, who knows, who's going to be there sort of situation, which is strange for a playoff team to have, a question mark like that heading into the postseason.
Well, here's what's strange, John, is that they have 2 players available to them now that Christian Arroyo has come back from the COVID IL list, and he is going to be the starting second baseman in the postseason.
Because he has to be.
Because Jose Iglesias is not eligible to take part in the postseason. Remember, he got signed by the Red Sox after September 1st, so that makes him ineligible to be part of the postseason roster. But even though Arroyo is going to be the guy at second in the wild card game and moving forward, should they win that, they're staying with Iglesias now because he's the better performer, which is kind of an odd message to be sending. We'll get to you later, they're saying to Christian Arroyo, when we don't have any other options. But until we clinch, we're going with the guy that we think has played better, and that's somewhat surprisingly Jose Iglesias, a guy who had played a handful of games at second in his major league career until earlier this month, but has solidified the position, played superb defense at second base, and also given them a little bit of offensive pop from the number 9 spot. So he's been a pleasant surprise here, but you're going through this knowing that when October 5th rolls around, Jose Iglesias is going to be in the clubhouse and not in uniform. Well, he'll probably be in uniform, but be ineligible in the dugout because of the rules. That's
a dumb rule, Sean. I don't like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's created to eliminate any sort of late season shenanigans in terms of roster maneuverability. I understand the reason for it. This is a unique case, obviously, but still a little bizarre as they're now 10 days away from the postseason.
Yeah, no, it's something to watch for. I guess, Sean, it's really hard to argue with how well the Red Sox are playing now. It's just such a far cry from the team. I mean, we talked in August and it was abandoned ship. Are you surprised they were able to turn it around like this, to be playing, everyone likes to say peaking at the right time, which appears to be what they're doing?
Yeah, I guess I'm not as surprised that they're playing well now as much as the fact that they survived the COVID outbreak. There were times in late August and early September when it looked like this season was going belly up because they literally were not going to have enough players to field the competitive team. They're bringing up guys making their major league debut at 28, 29 years old. They're using minor league journeymen to fill out the roster and sometimes start games on the mound and in the field because they literally didn't have enough healthy bodies. And the amazing thing is that they kept their heads above water during that outbreak when it could have kind of rolled over them and cost them their season. They played about 500 ball during that stretch. And now that they are in a cushy part of their schedule where you had the Orioles in over the weekend, the Mets, who are just the epitome of dysfunction the last 2 games, and they've beaten up on the bad teams at home, which is what you're supposed to do. So they're doing that now. But the amazing thing is that they kept themselves in the race and afloat when they were really short on bodies.
Again, that's kind of one of the beauties of baseball. There's enough bad teams out there that if you just do what you're supposed to do against those teams, you're going to remain in the mix. And to their credit, they've hammered all of those, kind of bottom feeders right now. And they're in the position that they're in. And they've got 6 more down the stretch here. So everything seems to be lined up for the Red Sox to at least get into the one game. But I still refuse to call it postseason. It's a playoff. I don't care, but at least to get there, right?
And probably given where they are, to have that game played at Fenway, which
matters,
a huge factor for them. They have literally scored. They played essentially the same number of games on the road as they have at home throughout the course of the season, but they have scored 100 more runs at home than they have on the road. They're a much better offensive team at home. In a one-game playoff where you can't leave anything to chance, they're far more formidable at Fenway. It's a lot easier to win that one game at home against, you're going to be facing Garrett Cole or Rob Ray or somebody like that who's going to be an elite starter. You'd much rather do that where you're a far better offensive team at Fenway than take your chances on the road.
No doubt. All right, Sean McAdam, thanks a lot. All right, let's talk hockey, bringing in Conor Ryan from the Boston Sports Journal. Conor, you are out at Bruins training camp day 2 officially. Is that correct? Day 2? So we get to see stuff. You get to see actual hockey. Among the things we're trying to track here is who's going to be playing with who. I think it's of massive interest. And one thing we've seen now 2 days in a row is what appears to be the third line taking shape, which would be Erik Haula playing center with Jake Debrusk on his left, Nick Foligno on the right. Of course, Foligno could play, center as well. But this looks to be pretty much what we're going to expect for the third line when the season starts, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at this lineup and all the moves made in the offseason, as much as you can look at all these additions and see all these moving parts and worry about where these guys kind of slot in. Bruce Cassidy on Thursday more or less said that they already have a pretty good idea of where these guys kind of fit in the lineup and where they're envisioning guys. So as much as, we talk about, guys on the roster below making a push, or maybe a guy could jump from maybe a fourth line roll up higher up in the lineup, it seems like they already have a plan in place. It's going to be more or less now about making sure they have that chemistry and whether or not they can execute kind of the plan they had this offseason of where these guys fit. So I think definitely a group that you've seen right now that has played together quite a bit during the first few days of camp is that Haula, Foligno, and Debrusk line. And it's definitely, an appealing mix of what you're getting from them. I mean, you've got a guy in Debrusk who we've talked about quite a bit, a guy that is due for a bounce back season, but you look
badly.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you need especially on that line, you need a trigger man, a guy that, again, are we expecting the Debrusk from 2 years ago where he's a potential 30-goal guy? No, but if he gets back to playing his style of game, if he gives you 15, 20 goals, 40-ish points, that's what you're looking for in the third line. So putting him with a guy in Haula, who good two-way guy down the middle, a guy that can drive play, straight line guy, which might fit a little bit better with Debrusk when compared to maybe a guy like Krejci who likes to control the base a little bit.
Right.
It seems like they're putting the pieces in place, trying to get the most out of Debrusk, and hopefully a guy like Haula also, improves on what maybe the last couple of years have been, where he's been a little bit up and down with his production.
Yeah, it may be as much about fit, as you said, as it is about just actual talent, and we know we've seen what Debrusk can do at his best. It's a matter of getting that out of him every night. And last year just didn't seem like he was there for whatever reason. So anything right now would certainly be an improvement over last year, when you're even talking about him being, and getting scratched in the playoffs and just really battling to just stay on that roster. It was a tough go for him. So, we'll see how this combination works out. The other thing is now with Charlie Coyle kind of in the non-contact sweater and not really able to resume, the role of the second line pivot here in the absence of David Krejci. We don't know what's going to happen. This guy has gotten probably more buzz than anybody at camp. Jack Studnicka here came in bigger, came in stronger. Everybody wrote all of those things about him. But, Bruce Butchie said on Thursday, he's in line. He's competing with a series of other people potentially for that spot at the Bruins second line. Your thoughts on that? And again, competing with could just be another way to say, yeah, who knows? Everyone's got a shot here right now until Charlie's ready. But this is an opportunity, I think, here for him to kind of take the ball and run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at Studnicka, he definitely has an uphill climb in terms of especially maybe supplanting a guy like Coyle at the second line center spot. Who knows? As much as we've talked about that third line kind of gelling, if Studnicka has a really strong camp, maybe he makes a push for the third line. And, it's a good problem to have, right? If you're bumping a guy like Haula or Foligno further down the lineup to impact the fourth line. So I think you look at Studnicka, and this whole week, I think, is going to be key for him, because as much as Coyle's out of commission right now, he's still skating. He's in a red non-contact jersey. He's going to be able to get back on the ice and in game settings pretty soon. So for Studnicka, where you've got pretty much 4 preseason games coming up this week, this is the opportunity for him for, if he's going to be getting reps, and let's say they bring out Hall and Smith, if he's playing against, the Capitals this week or the Flyers, and he puts together a 2-point night or a 3-point night, that's what he needs to do. He can't, be gliding through his shifts by doing the status quo, by not impacting the game when he's got those weapons with him, because this is the time for him to show that he has the offensive skills to, if not fight for that second line spot, at least warrant being in the lineup, because the Bruins could desperately use a guy with his offensive potential in the lineup every day. It just, he needs to show it during this opportunity that he has right now during the preseason.
Yeah, Connor, I totally agree. It's all about making the most of opportunities. And too many of these kind of tweener players, potential prospects that the Bruins have brought up over time, that's what's happened too often. I think you see flashes, you just don't see it consistently enough, and no one has really kind of grabbed it. And that could be JFK, that could be Anders Bjork. There's so many different names in there where you've rolled in and say, could this be the guy? There's a lot of could this be the guy guys, but so far none of them have proven to be the guy or really had that staying power. So yes, for an organization that does not have a lot of talent coming up the pipeline, they could really use a hit or two, and Studnicka right now appears to be the most likely player to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just look at that offensive ceiling and what he showed, whether it be in junior or in Providence, the talent does pop, and it's all about kind of getting those pieces in place, because the last thing you want is for him, as you said, to kind of be that AHL call that finds himself in that no man's land, right?
The 4A guy, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You don't want that. You want him to be a fourth line guy that chips in, that maybe down the road carves out to be a PK specialist. No, you want a middle six guy that's going to inject offense into your lineup. So if there's a chance for him to do that and make that case, it's probably going to come this week.
Yeah, and too many guys in the system are profiling as bottom of the lineup guys, or just guys who might play in the NHL, not necessarily stick or make an impact. So right now, yes, the hopes rest with Studnicka to maybe be that impact guy. It would be nice to see it this year.